Okay, so today we're going to talk about Ebdm and how to process Ebdm in AccuZIP. Facts first, there are two types of Ebdm. There are Ebdm Retail, and there is also Ebdm Bmeu, or commercial Ebdm is what it's normally called in the industry. Ebdm Retail, you can do up to 5,000 a day. It does drop of the post office of the zip code. You do not need a mail permit when you're doing Ebdm Retail. The post office has provided a generic mail permit for Ebdm Retail since it can be used by the general public, and it does have a special form, a 3587, to use. Ebdm Commercial, with it you can mail as many as you want a day. There's no volume. You use your mail permit, your normal standard mail permit, to pay the postage, and you can drop it actually at 3 places. You can drop it at your Bmeu, you can drop it at a SCF, and you can drop it at a destination delivery unit. All those have different rates according to where you're taking the mail for the post office. Currently, Ebdm Retail is at 20 cents. With Ebdm Commercial, currently the Bmeu rate is 0.235. If you take it to the SCF, the current rate is 0.189, and the DDU current rate is 0.168. So you can see the SCF and the DDU rate are significantly lower than the 20-cent retail rate currently. The other advantage with doing Ebdm Commercial is as many as you want a day, of course. You use a normal 3602 form. You do pay with your mail permit, and you can also do Ebdm nonprofit with commercial. So you have the advantages if you have a customer that's a nonprofit and they want to blanket an area, being able to use their nonprofit authorization to get them the nonprofit rate when you're doing Ebdm Commercial. So let's do a Ebdm Retail to start out. In AccuZIP, you're going to go to Select and Create Simplified Ebdm List. For the retail, I have just chosen one carrier route. If you're only doing one carrier route in AccuZIP, in our Ebdm build feature, you would just put that one carrier route between the brackets, one space after the zip code. You can choose to do residential only, or you can do everybody on the route, which would be residential and business. Then to create the list, you're going to click Build. Before you build it, make sure you pick an approximate mailing date. Get as close as you can to when you think you're going to drop it. That will allow the software to use the correct labeling list. So I'm just going to pick the 17th. And then we're going to build this list. So when you click Build, you actually navigate to the folder where you want to put the list, and AccuZIP's going to create the list and place it in your folder. It does create two things. It creates a count sheet for that list that you just created, and that will give you the zip code, the carrier route, how many mailboxes are residential or how many addresses are considered residential, and then how many are possible, which would be residential with business. So if you ever need to look at your numbers before you start working, you can actually build a whole zip code and look at all the counts on all the carrier routes if you want to. And then, of course, it does create a list for pre-sorting. And you have a placeholder or a record for every address on that route. So we're just going to go directly to pre-sort because the list is pre-made with everything you need. No need to validate or anything. So we're just going to go to pre-sort. So we're going to set up our pre-sort for our Ebdm Retail. You've got your standard mail Ebdm here, and we're going to go into our calculator, and we're going to set up an Ebdm Retail. So 6 1/4 by 9 would be a flat. If you're using 14-point cardstock or something equivalent, whatever your paper, however thick it is, whatever you're mailing, you would add that to the thickness, of course, and then get your weight and add it to your ounces. And then after you click OK, the calculator is going to tell you that it's a flat, you are going to do sacks, and 2,800 would be 70 pounds. Now, just for a training moment here, 70-pound sacks, if you decide you don't want sacks that heavy, you do have the opportunity here to put a little bit less per sack and make those sacks weigh a little bit less. Obviously, we only have 1,000 pieces, so our sacks, we're only going to have one, but just so that you know that you do have the ability to lighten up those sacks if you want to by changing the maximum amount in the sack. So we're also going to include non-zip +4, and we're going to include a carry route level. We are entering, since this is retail EDDM, at the same zip code of the list we created, where we're going to drop the mail. And then we're going to pick our mail date down here, and we're going to pre-sort. Now, just as a side note really quickly, AccuZIP does have a tech note on how to get 50, 75, or 100-piece bundles. We can give this to you if you want to call in. It's on our website. It actually, since the thickness designates how big the stack is, if you want 100-piece bundles, you would use anything from 0.001 to 0.402. If you want 75, anything from 0.403 to 0.0536, and then anything above 0.0537 would give you a 50-piece bundle. And just to go backwards for a moment, that would be entered into your calculator in your thickness option right here, so that you can see how that will give you the appropriate bundle. Now, the first thing you're going to do after you pre-sort is print your tags. You can change your memo line if you want to. Just as a note, if you want to do that to designate the tags with a name or some details, you can do that. You'll notice we have the Ebdm Retail current price of 0.20 cents. And then the next thing you're going to do is, of course, print your reports. Right here is your facing slips box. So AccuZIP will give you a facing slip for each bundle just by clicking the facing slip option. So we're going to do that and click print. Obviously, you're going to set this up with your name, your address, your permit number. Make sure the post office is the post office where you're going to drop the mail, not the post office of your permit. If you have a permit and you're just doing this one job, Ebdm Retail, because it's really small, make sure you change that to the post office where you're taking the mail. And then, of course, you can print your reports. After you print your reports, you have a link to your pre-sort folder right here if you want to jump directly to it. We can see our tags in the pre-sort folder, and here is our documentation. So we've got our Ebdm Retail paperwork. We've got our CAS certificate to show that our carry route dates are within the appropriate times. And then on our qual report, we can see, because of the thickness we entered, we have 100-piece bundles. And obviously, since there's 1,005, we have 10 and 100, and then we have one bundle of 5. And you will get the appropriate facing slips to match that. So as you go down, you can see this is the first facing slip, 1 of 11. It has 100 in it. There's slip 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That gets us to 1,000, and then we have the last bundle of 5 pieces. So that would be your Ebdm Retail from start to finish, pretty much. It's fairly easy, but you do have to deliver it to the post office that works that mail, and you can only do 5,000 or less per day. Now, going back to our Create Ebdm Address option under Select, we're going to look at one of the new features, the ability to look up carry routes versus creating a whole zip code. So if you're doing a range of carry routes, you would enter the zip code, a space, open bracket. And then if I want carry route 1 to carry route 10 on the city routes, I would use a dash to designate that. And then I would come down, and if I want rural route 56 and rural route 122, and those are the only two I want in the rural routes, I can separate those by comma, and then I will only get those two routes. So single route, just the route in the brackets as we looked at earlier, with just the route between the brackets and the zip code. And then if you want a range, use a dash. And if you want more than one but they're not in a range, just separate each one with a comma. And then, of course, as always, you can say residential only, and we can exclude P.O. boxes if we want to, or exclude city routes if we wanted. You have those options. So we're just going to click build, and we're going to place this in our folder so that we can open it back up and pre-sort. So AccuZIP does give the list the name of the zip code and the carry routes that you've chosen, and there's no problem saving it like that if you want to. If you're doing a special project for a customer, you may want to rename the list if you like. That way, if you look back on it later, you would have the name of the customer, maybe your job ID, something like that. So it is possible to rename these. It's specifically helpful if you're doing a large mailing and you have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different zip codes. The name can get really long. So sometimes renaming it makes it a little easier to work with. So you do have that ability when you're saving to save that file under a different name if you want to. So now that we have it saved, we're just going to go up to File, Open Database. Once again, I'm just going to open that count sheet because I really like the count sheets that we give us. It's really helpful sometimes if you're talking to customers and they want to kind of get a look at the different routes and how many people's on the routes or how many possibles on the routes. You can give them this to look at. You can also export this to a CSV and open it up in Excel or email it to them if they just want to know like how many routes are on a zip code, how many residential, how many possible. It's a great way to get a set of counts for your customers. So these count sheets are a favorite of mine. I really like them. So we can see we've got our residential and our possible. We've got our 1 through 10 range that we created on the city routes, and we've got our rural route 56 and 122 that we've created. And those are all in our file. So now we're going to open the file. So open database. Right here is our DDF. It's the one that doesn't have counts in the name. And we can see on this one it's 8,520. So right away we know specifically that it's over 5,000. So we couldn't do this Ebdm Retail if we wanted to because it's over 5,000 pieces. We would have to split it up. So that's, as I said earlier, a great advantage to doing Ebdm commercials. You can do as many as you want a day. So once again, the list is complete. You don't have to do anything to it. There's no validation or anything like that. So we're going to go directly to our pre-sort setup. So once again, you want to make sure you have Ebdm standard mail chosen. Since this is commercial, if I wanted to nail it nonprofit, I could. You do have that option. And then once again, we're going to use our calculator. So maybe this time we're going to do a large sheet. So 8.5 by 11 maybe. And let's just change this to 12-point cardstock to be changing it. And maybe change our weight just a little since we are looking at setup. And so once I have my calculator filled in with my height, my length, my thickness, and my weight, I can click OK, and I can let the software set up the rest of the information for me. So now once again, of course, it's a flat, so we're going in sacks, and we've got our 69-pound sack at 3,000 pieces. As we said before, that's great. The post office will accept that. But if you like lighter sacks, you can always make that a little lighter. I'm just not a big fan of heavy sacks. If you are a big fan of heavy sacks, just let it select what it does and keep going. But I do want you to know you have an option to make that sack a little lighter if you want to. And then you're always going to include non-zip +4 and include carry route level, of course. Since this is a commercial mailing, we would put in the zip +4 the zip code where we have our mail permit. So I'm just going to change that up, and we're going to use a Bmeu zip code so we can enter this as commercial mail. So just as an overview, I'm going to do this about 3 times, so stay with me. We're going to do all 3 rates. We're going to do the Bmeu rate, which is currently 0.235. Then we're going to do a SCF rate, which is currently 0.189. And then I'm going to show you how to set up a DDU chart and do the DDU rate of 0.168. So we'll do this a couple times. So the first thing we're going to do is a Bmeu entry, meaning we would take it to the post office that works our mail permit, and we just leave it with them, and they're going to deliver it to the post office of our list, which is currently 37921. So once again, make sure that you pick your mail date down here. So, and then when you pre-sort, you're going to see that you have a 0.235, which is the Bmeu rate, because that zip code is not the zip code of our mail permit. So we can leave it there, though, and not have to drive it anywhere, and they'll be more than happy to take it where it gets delivered for 0.235 per piece. Now, if we wanted to take it to the SCF, we actually have to click the SCF box. That's telling the post office that we're saying we're going to deliver that mail for them. In this instance, and it may be the same with a lot of you, that your Bmeu and your SCF is the same entry point. If it's the same entry point, you still have to check the box. You have to let the post office know that you want an SCF entry. And if your post office is one place and the SCF is somewhere else, obviously you're going to want to check the box to let them know that you're going to take it there for them. So with the SCF entry, if we pre-sort, we're going to get a postage of 0.189, which we can see down here at the bottom. So if you wanted to drop it at, or check it in at your Bmeu and then take it to your SCF, you could get the 0.189 postage rate. And if you're, I'm looking all the way down right under the blue link, and it in that line, it tells you like your full postage amount and how many pieces, and then your average postage rate. So we're looking down here at the bottom. Now, the last thing we're going to do is the DDU entry. So a DDU is a destination delivery entry. And when you're doing a destination delivery entry, you're telling the post office that if there's 4 or 5 zip codes in this large commercial Eddm mailing, you're going to drive it to all 4 or 5 of those post offices. Kind of in a way like you would with retail, but with retail, your postage is 20 cents and you can only do 5,000 a day, and you have to do a different set of paperwork for each post office. With commercial Eddm, if you're doing a DDU or destination delivery unit entry, you know, you can have all 4 or 5 zip codes in the same list, and you can do as many as you want a day and as many as you want to each post office. So it makes it a whole lot easier on your paperwork. And Eddm does also upload to Postal One, so you can upload everything and not have to have all that paperwork going to the retail post offices. So, sorry. To get back on course, we're going to set up a DDU chart. So right outside of our Knoxville post office, we've got a little icon we're going to check. And we're going to set up a DDU chart. So the first thing you want to do is click the little Create New Settings button. And I usually just name these DDU. You might want to put maybe the zip code that you're looking to set it up for. And then we're going to create Get DDU Zips. And that actually, the software is actually looking at the list for you. And it's going to look for everywhere that there is a zip code and a carry route that has enough pieces to get a destination delivery unit entry. Just as a point of reference here, if you had maybe 4 zip codes in your list, and you wanted to DDU 3 of them, but you didn't want to DDU all of them, just the 3 specifically, you could actually set up this DDU chart and enter the ones that you want to do. So if you had 37921, you could add that to the chart, and maybe you had 37918, you could add that to the chart. And then if you had maybe 37716, which we looked at earlier, but you didn't want to DDU it because it was too far to drive, then you could leave it off the list. So you would get a DDU rate for the ones you requested and not for the one you didn't request. That could be left at your Bmeu, and the post office would deliver it for you. So we're just going to use our DDU 37921, which we clicked Get All of the DDU zip buttons for. And we're going to save that. And you can see once you save it, the name you gave the DDU chart is actually listed under your Bmeu zip code or your mail drop setup zip code. So once again, we're going to choose our date, and we're going to pre-sort. And since we requested our DDU entry, we can see we've got the postage rate of 168. So we're going to print our tags. Once again, if you want to put something here, you can change your memo line, put your job ID or whatever. That's whatever you want to put on the tray tags, you can do that. And we're just going to print those to a PDF. And then going into your reports, since this is commercial EDDM, you are using your paperwork, your mail permit, you are uploading to Postal One, you're going to want to fill out this screen as you would any other mailing that you use your mail permit for. So the zip code of the post office would be here, where your permit is, your permit would be here, your information in the center column, the customer you're mailing for in the right column. And then, of course, on EDDM, one of the things that you also want to do for commercial is your move update method. You're required to have a move update method, and if you're uploading to Postal One without a move update method, the upload will fail. So alternative address format is what we're using with EDDM. So you'll want to make sure that you choose that before you print your reports for EDDM commercial. And then we're just going to click continue, and we're going to print our reports, and then we'll have a look at those and our tray tags. Okay, once your pre-sort is finished, we can go into our pre-sort folder. We can see that we have our tags for our trays all set out. We've got a standard flat ECR WSS, which is enhanced carry route walk sequence. And we can see that we have a sack for each carrier. And then into our paperwork, which is a normal 3602. When you're doing commercial mail, you can see we have 8 sacks. We have 8,520 pieces in our sack. And we're dropping at Knoxville 37950. Since we requested a DDU entry, we do have the DDU saturation rate of 168. And there's our CAS certificate. And here is our layout for our carrier routes, our sacks. So we can see we've got our 100-piece bundles. Since we did use a thickness, that would give us a 100-piece bundle. So, and you will have, obviously, a little left over after every 100-piece bundle on every carrier route because carrier routes aren't even. So we can jump down to our facing slips real fast, and we can see that on carrier route 12, we've got 1,180 pieces. So in that carrier route, we have 12 facing slips, and this is 1 of 12, 2 of 12, and on. One of the things we didn't look at that if you're doing a DDU drop that you will need is your DDU drop shipment form. And that is an 8125 form that's telling the post office that you're delivering to that you did check the mail in at your Bmeu or your normal post office where you normally take your mail, and that you paid the postage there, and now you're bringing it to them for a DDU drop. The 8125 drop shipment form, when you take it into the post office with the mail, the Bmeu would round date it right here normally, and then you would take this to the DDU post office, and they will know that you paid the postage at your Bmeu with your mail permit as you normally do. If you're doing e-induction, then obviously you don't need an 8125, but most of us, just so you know, the 8125 can be printed and is available for you to take. And if you're not doing e-induction, make sure you take that with you when you take the mail to your Bmeu to check it in. And that is pretty much EDDM from start to finish. The different rates, the different paperworks. You will get all the facing slips. I'm really proud of our new feature where you can create specific carrier routes and ranges of carrier routes instead of getting a whole zip code and then having to search for the independent carrier routes in that whole list. Now you can look for what you specifically want, either a range of carrier routes or pick specific carrier routes in the zip code, or just do, one carrier route. And once again, if you're doing a whole zip code, you just type the zip code in, and if it's more than one zip code, you can type those in, separate those by a comma, and get everything in the specific zip codes you want. And if you're doing EDDM commercial and you're doing multiple zip codes, you would do those the same way. Maybe on this zip code we want C002 to C, always use the capital, 005. So we could add that on. We could do another zip code and add R001 and maybe R067, something like that. So you can see you can do ranges, you can do multiple carrier routes just by picking them individually, and you can do multiple zip codes when you're doing EDDM commercial. And as always, if you have any questions at all about anything we've talked about, or if you need any help with setting these up for the first time, or any help going through the system, call support. We'll be more than happy to help you with anything you need. If you need to reach us at any time, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. Eastern Time to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, chat is open and available. And from 9 a.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. Eastern, we are available via phone. If you go to AccuZIP6.com, the support phone number is at the top along with the sales phone number, and our chat line is available there also. So we are more than happy to help you with anything you need. Just give us a call, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.